Team, welcome back to Process Podcast. In today's episode, I sit down with Rylan Schadegg. He is an elite 15 Hyrox racer. He works with many an athlete in the Hyrox space. And honestly, I was really excited about this episode. I mean, I do have Hyrox happening in a week's time. So I have been thinking about things like programming a lot more in recent times. And in this episode, we dig deep into programming, assessment, race strategy, how to bring down your race time in a Hyrox race. And there's a lot of really great stuff to take away from here. I think you're going to love it. Ryland, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well.
I was just practicing saying your surname and I decided not to even do it.
Honestly, when I was in high school, I was a soccer player, and it got to the point where the announcer, whenever he would announce the lineup, he just started calling me Schadegg.
Schadegg.
Because he would get to my name and he would go, Schadegg.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's quite a cool mistake on your surname.
Honestly, I was like, all right, we can do that. We can work with that.
So. Ryland, what do you do? Who are you and what do you do?
I am an endurance athlete. I'm a coach. I'm currently trying to specialize in Hyrox on both the coaching side, but especially in my personal athletic journey. But I really like to dabble in a lot of other sports as well, mainly anything that is endurance focused. So,
okay, why Hyrox? Like, you know, I know we've talked a little bit about like your training background. Like you just classified yourself as an endurance athlete. I'm always interested to hear how people introduce themselves. Like, why Hyrox? What has landed you at this point in life where you're pursuing it as an athlete and as a coach?
Hyrox has a lot of opportunity in it right now. And then also they've started to get a lot more professional about the way that they run races and the way they make courses. And sure, there's like things that they can do better. There's always things that we can do better. But as far as the space that they're creating and the opportunity that they're creating for their athletes, it's really giving us a chance to be full-time athletes and also to kind of be pioneers in this blend of what they call it, like hybrid athletes. It's quite fun because I've always been a naturally quite large endurance athlete. And when I became a fireman, I put on some muscle mass to be able to carry things better and to do that sort of racing. Because you're dragging a dummy in those races, and then also you want to be able to drag people out of buildings and such. And so put on a bit of muscle size from my cyclist days, and then picked up trail running and absolutely loved it. And so I just kind of became a big trail runner. Then I found Spartan racing and truly love obstacle course racing because you're outside, you're in the mud, you're in the rain, like you're just running up mountains and doing cool stuff. And then that kind of started to tank. And at the same time that was tanking down, Hyrox started taking off. And I tried a couple, and as soon as they, basically for me, as soon as they decided that they were going to start doing doping control testing and such, and write it out that that's illegal, then I was like, sweet, this is a legitimate sport I can focus on. And I just enjoy running fast, to be honest. I like moving quickly.
And then like the concept of full-time athlete, what does that mean? Like, does that mean that your primary living is coming through training and competing in the sport? Like, how do you classify that in Hyrox?
Yeah, I would say a lot of the elite 15 guys, especially the top 5 to 10, are starting to have the opportunity to get all of their income that they need to live through endorsements and sponsorships, and then also prize money if you're at the top of the sport.
Yeah, I think it's like as more of a fan and someone who's probably helping people not probably as specialized as you are in this space, like it's actually quite hard for me to see what the elite guys are actually earning. Like it's hard for me to see what one could earn as a living if they were, you know, at the top of the game.
Yeah.
And it's also hard to know and hard to see how high up the ladder you need to be to make anything substantial. You know what I mean?
Top 10 to 15.
Yeah. So outside of that, most of those guys and girls they still have other full-time jobs.
Yes, I would say outside of that, they still have other full-time jobs, or there's a really unique scenario here where, because it's such a new sport, and it is also one of those sports that is quite different than anything else, because you legitimately have to be fairly strong. but you also have to be wicked fast at running to be a pro. And so blending the two is quite tricky. So a lot of running coaches that have not done Hyrox and haven't truly experienced it at a high level have a really hard time programming for other people who are trying to reach the Elite 15, or they're trying to do it at a high level. And then strength coaches or people from more of the strength side of things also struggle because it's hard to describe to someone how something is supposed to feel when you haven't experienced it. So that's creating this vacuum effect of uh, the need for people to coach for Hyrox, because this year I think they're projecting about 1.2 million people are going to participate.
What is that as a growth number relative to last year?
Last year was like, I think they ended at 600 to 700,000.
Wow.
And towards the end of the year, it was way different than the beginning. Like 2024, they start about, I would say now is the beginning of the season, or at least in Asia it is. And then it's going to progress to the European season in the early fall. And then the US season really starts like late fall through the spring of next year. And then same with Europe. And so basically you start in the fall of 2025, and then the season ends summer of 2026. So it's a long season.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like, it seems like Asia is the earliest that starts in 2025, and then it kind of migrates to Europe, and then the US is what it seems like it progressively goes west.
Is that as like a defined season window, or is that just kind of like your observational take on? Because you're kind of saying like it kind of looks like Asia kicks it all off and then it moves to here. 'Cause I get it when I think about the competition season, but I'm also not looking at it from an elite lens, maybe like you are.
Yeah.
And then, you're picking your races and you got world champs and stuff. I'm not seeing the definitive season. I know like world champs just happened. Just
1 month ago.
Yeah, just a month ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, is what does like an actual Hyrox season typically look like? Like, I know you just kind of touched on the months there, but like, are they blocking it off in like certain like Europe's, Australia's, Asia's, and is it moving around in the circuit? So I'm a bit.
No, that is just something I've observed.
Yeah.
And that's a big reason why I came to Asia, is because I need one fast time to qualify for the first major in Hamburg, which is in October. So that's the official kickoff for the elites. So you got to have two fastest times have to be averaged top 15 in the world to be in that race. And so hard to do. I think you need to average below a 56 at this point. Like your top two races need to average in the last 365 days. And so since I have done very little racing in the last 2 years, I only have one really good time.
So you basically picked Asia, where you've got a consecutive number of races where you can kind of like smash them all.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I can have a gap, get ready for the first major, race the first major, and then there's another 6 to 8 week gap where I can get a lot of solid training in. And then there's Melbourne in Australia, and then another 6 to 8 week gap, and then US. Two big races in the US, and then I think it goes back to Europe for the fourth final major. So,
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Run us through real quick, like what have you achieved as a racer in your Hyrox career so far?
Hyroxing, I've done very little of, to be truthful, as far as like focused work. When I first got into it, basically you only needed one fast time. And so I had done 2 races prior to the race that actually qualified me for the Elite 15. And that was when I was more of an OCR athlete and I was just dabbling in Hyrox for fun. And then when I started to see it take off, I basically started training for it, went, qualified, raced my first major, and actually snagged a podium at my first major, which also qualified me for world champs. And that was 2024, or end of 2023, 24 season. And then I got sick while I was living in Dubai. I have a thing called vocal cord disorder, and then also exercise dynamic airway collapse, where the back of my trachea like collapses in. So if I speak for a long time, or I sing, or I breathe hard for a long time, it gets worse and worse progressively if I don't take care of it. And it took about a year to figure that out. And it still flares up now and again. So about 2 weeks ago, I had that. So I took a huge break from Hyrox for about almost a full year. Um, and I still hadn't figured that out. But then I went, because of my fast time that at the first major I ever went to in Chicago. The next year, the first major was 2 weeks prior to that. So I was barely qualified for it because I was still in the 365 days.
Hmm.
And the only reason I went was to say goodbye to the sport. I was like, this is probably the biggest, coolest race I'll ever get to do again. And I showed up, and it was honestly like a miracle. I just popped a good one. It was the first day that I can remember in that entire year where I truly felt good. Um, and so that qualified me for world champs in 2025. And so then I was like, well, I guess we're going to try and do this again. And so that's when I came to Hong Kong, raced the next major. Halfway through that race, it happened. I bombed it. So I went from, I think in the last 3 stations, I went from second to eighth. And I had never finished off a podium in a Hyrox prior to that. And then over the winter, it got bad again. And then March of this year, it started getting better again. And also my hip was able to, I was able to rehab that to the point where I could run. And I went all in again and showed up to world champs and singles and doubles. Singles didn't go quite so well, but doubles went really well. And now I'm like, okay, I think I can actually do this again. So I've really only raced, I think, 8 solos and 2 doubles. But 2 of those have been off the podium. The rest have been like really, really solid races. So it kind of was one of those things where I jumped into it and I had quick success, and I was like, okay, this is probably something I should focus on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, we're gonna dive into programming shortly, but I'm interested to know when you transitioned from the obstacle course stuff,
Yeah.
and you did your first Hyrox race, probably not knowing all that much about it. Obviously, like you were good already. Like, obviously what you had been doing lent you to be pretty successful within Hyrox.
Yeah.
What was the element of Hyrox? Maybe it was a station or was a component of a race that was actually hardest for you.
Wall balls.
Wall balls? Was that a mobility limiter or?
Mobility, because of being a cyclist for so long. Like I focused on cycling exclusively for almost 5 or 6 years. Really wanted to be like a pro mountain biker. And because of that, I had very limited range of motion in my hips and ankles, which made squatting hard. Thankfully, when I became a fireman and I was choosing that career, that was when I was doing OCR as well. I was doing both. And so I got into the strength side of things a lot more. And I had improved, but still, like at the end of a Hyrox race, when everything's kind of locked up, you're holding a lot of tension. It was a limiting factor for me. But until that point, honestly, it was pretty solid.
Everything else kind of like lent into your strengths a lot
Yeah,
more.
yeah, because like dragging, I know this sounds strange, but dragging people upstairs or dragging them across the floor feels a lot like a sled pull.
Yeah.
And then pushing anything heavy is a lot like climbing a mountain with weight on your back or being packed up in full gear and like climbing stairs. And we used to do that all the time for training. And so it was like I was already training for it, except I just didn't know.
Yeah. Just didn't look like a Hyrox race.
Yeah.
Awesome. Team, I want to quickly interrupt this episode to give a little shout out to our sponsors, Today Well Spent. This little journal has made such a massive, profound impact on my life since I started using it. When I started using it, I actually didn't know that it was backed by neuroscience, but now it totally makes sense. This has brought a ton of gratitude to my life. It keeps me on track and focused on the things I need to do day to day and brings a lot of context as to how each day fits within the greater week and the greater month. So if you, like me, really care about trying to be a high performer and want to do everything you can to make that happen, I cannot recommend this journal enough. Use our discount code, THEPROCESS, to grab yours today.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically at this phase of life right now, you're kind of like back to all in on the Hyrox stuff, which is awesome. And you're going to be racing in a few days.
Yeah.
As will I. And today we're going to be talking about programming for me. This
Cool.
this is me pretending that I want to hear about your life, Ryan, but actually, this is you just. I'm just getting some free coaching in the next 45 minutes.
Cool. Sounds good.
Before that, though, I think I'm actually really interested. I actually sent you a voice note on Instagram, I think a couple of weeks ago. Just curious to hear about your own training.
Mhm.
Again, like, YouTube is awesome. Like, you can get on there and see what a lot of the guys and girls are doing. But obviously, there are a lot, just like any sport, you're just seeing the highlights and the snapshots of like
Yeah.
the coolest things you're doing. And so I'm actually not really sure. I know that when I came into the CrossFit space at first, there was just everyone had their own unique approach. And I think there's a lot of still kind of unique approaches, but
Yep.
more or less, you look at the big organizations who are working with top athletes, it's kind of more or less the same kind of thing. And you
Yep.
kind of takes a while to really understand that as the sport matured and coaches got more knowledgeable. Obviously, I think Hyrox is a lot more simple in many aspects versus CrossFit, where you're trying to improve people at 5 million different things.
Yeah.
So I don't really know. Like, I don't really have like a deep understanding of what the top guys and girls are actually doing on a consistent week in, week out basis. So right now, the context of where you're at, you're about to race this weekend. I
Yeah.
think you've got another race coming up in how many weeks after that?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. And then I think you've got another race after that.
Depending on how this weekend
Okay,
and
cool.
the one in Japan go.
So like, take me through, maybe like, let's go a month back.
Yeah.
Like, what does your training week look like?
So this will I'll kind of exclude, it was world champs, so I did take a bit of time after that. So
Yeah.
but typically a month out from a race,
Yeah.
that's when I would either be doing a VO2 max block or a threshold block, depending on what I needed more or what I had done previously. So
Let's break that down. Let's
Yeah.
get geeky today.
Okay. So essentially, the way that endurance athletes train, and you know how you said CrossFit has gotten to the point where it's a lot of people are training very similarly.
Mm.
So 3 years ago, people in Hyrox it was all over the map.
Yeah.
But the elite guys are getting closer and closer and closer. So what I was doing 3 to 5 years ago is very similar to what almost all of them are doing now.
Yeah.
So
And what was your advantage? Just because you'd spent so much time in endurance sports, or?
I think so. So when I got into it, and I also had been a coach for a while at that point, because I started coaching at a pretty young age for endurance athletes. So I
Yeah.
started with cyclists because that was what I knew and that's what I was good at. And then same with running. And then as I started to get into Hyrox, I implemented a lot of those training
Nice.
principles, because Hyrox is actually really similar to, it's more similar to a cycling training program than a running training program. The reason is because of the machine work and the volume of machine work that you can do. Because running coaches, they have to be really, really, really careful on mileage. Hyrox coaches need to as well. But the top limit is way higher in running. So you're worried way more about stress fractures. And with running, overtraining is usually limited by soft tissue or bones.
Yeah.
Whereas with Hyrox, I think we're going to start to see more and more athletes actually end up with like chronic overtraining syndrome.
Yeah.
Because of the volume that they can do on the machines. And then when you're blending strength, machine work, and running, you can always do another rep on a ski erg, basically,
Yeah.
or on a bike or on a rower. So essentially, when you're at a really high level where you can handle a lot of volume, you have to be careful to not do too much. So then it's like, I manage all of my training and all of my athletes' training with what I call training stress score.
Yeah.
So basically, I take their heart rate data, their pace data, and their RPE, and it's combined all together in a software that I use.
Just an app, basically like a scoring metric.
Yeah. It's mainly off heart rate, pace. Those are the big ones, and I have all of their zones set. So, say for instance, we have your heart rate zone. How old are you?
37.
37. So your threshold heart rate is probably somewhere between 160, 175.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's outliers. So obviously everyone test it yourself. But in general, that's usually where someone your age would be. So it will actually score you on how much time that you're spending in that zone. And then it'll give a certain intensity score for the workout, depending on what zone you were in for how long. And so you can stack week by week, and you can look at the end of the week and be like, okay, this is how much training stress you had. And what that does is the idea of the off season, so like 16 weeks out to 32 weeks out from my first big race, I should be in off season mode.
Yeah.
So what that looks like for me is I'm doing a lot more low intensity. So on the ergs, on the bike, on the runs, everything's a lot more zone 2 or zone 1, depending on how fit you are. If the more fit you are, the more zone 1 you need to do, because zone 2 is too taxing. So I can build.
I love that, by the way.
Yeah.
Trying to get CrossFitters to do zone 2, that already seems like a waste of time. They're like, why would I do something so low intensity? It's not going to give any benefits. You're actually here saying even zone 2 in an off season can be too much.
So not too much. I mean, it's running specifically.
Yeah.
So for me to get my heart rate into zone 2 running now that I've been doing it for 10 years, really high level.
Yeah.
I have to run basically like 4-minute K or 4:30.
Yeah.
In order to get my heart rate.
That's your zone 2.
To get it up past 130. And my zone 2 heart rate is
But what kind of distance are we talking?
Probably up to like 20K.
Well,
so if I'm doing a zone 2 run, if it's supposed to be a recovery day, I actually, like, this is what's frustrating about social media to me, is everyone's like zone 2, zone 2, zone 2, do an 80-20 thing. It's like, no, for each athlete, like for you, a zone 2 session, it might be hard for you to keep your heart rate down.
Yeah.
For me, if I have more of an endurance background, or I'm from cycling or swimming or something like that, it actually might be harder for me to keep it in there if I've had a previous hard session the day before.
Yeah.
So then it's more of a zone 1 session. So that's where I actually like to label things high and low days.
Yeah.
So in the off season, my high days, instead of them being high intensity, they'll be more volume at aerobic threshold instead. Because you can bank more time with less damage, but you can also bank so much time that you're increasing the training stress tolerance. And then when you go to the higher intensities, as I get within 16 weeks of a critical event, then I start swapping the high volume work for the higher intensity, and I bump up the intensity. But the training stress actually comes down or remains the same, and it improves the recovery between.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Okay. So let's actually break that down. Like, you're talking about high days, low days for you. Like, break down a 7-day window for me.
Yeah.
Like, how many sessions a day are we doing? What, like, what does it look like from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday? I would love to hear about blend of like strength versus ergs versus actually running. How many kilometers you clocking in a week? I know that depends upon, let's say we're in a 16 weeks is like you're now prepping for a race, right?
Yeah.
So let's say we're just crossing into that threshold now. What is your week looking like?
So a threshold block, which is honestly what's hot in Hyrox right now. Everyone's talking about double threshold days and everything. First off, if you can't handle 1 threshold session, don't do 2. If you feel smoked from 1, don't do 2 on the same day. Like, slowly build up to it. But for me, the 12 weeks leading up to World Champs.
Can I just pause you real quick, right? Yeah. These so I haven't heard the double threshold days. So what you're saying is that right now everyone's talking about doing 2 threshold sessions in a day?
Yeah. So I did that today.
Yeah.
And a strength session. Yeah.
Right. So you did just a run-based threshold session this morning?
Yes.
And then this PM were you doing like mixed work, right? You were basically going run to ergs to some of the functional stations.
Yep.
Okay, cool. And
all at like threshold or just below threshold effort.
Okay, and why is this a thing right now? I mean, I'm not in the Hyrox world as much as you are. Why is everyone talking about this?
So Jacob Ingebrigtsen from Norway made it super popular because he's a really, really successful runner. Yeah. And so now people are doing double or sometimes even triple threshold sessions in a day. And the reason
that's what he's doing, or?
So he made it popular. I would say he's someone who made it popular. Cyclists have been doing stuff like that for a long time, and so have triathletes. Like, they'll do a brick session, but the difference is in triathlon, it's like 2 different modalities. Yeah. So a lot of Hyrox programming right now, coaches are doing a morning run threshold session, or for me, it might be neuromuscular work, or today was more of a speed session. Or it could be a threshold session, depending on the phase of training I'm in. As I get closer to a race, typically the more race specific I get. And so it'll be more threshold.
The whole argument for this double threshold day is basically stack 2 hard sessions in a day. Yes. Right? Like, reap the adaptations of that and then have basically a longer rest period between the next time you do it. That's I'm guessing that's a concept, right?
Yeah, because if you think about it, the hormones that are released when you're truly stressing your body, at least for me, like if I ramp up too fast, I need sleep aids to fall asleep because my sleep gets too
compromised.
Crappy. Yeah, because I'm constantly spiking my cortisol, and that's not the only one. So that's one principle that it really helps with. But the other thing that it really helps with is truly getting enough recovery in between.
Yeah.
Because the classic mistake, which is probably a bit different than CrossFit, is CrossFit, a lot of the workouts are really, really short. The actual intense portions. Like you have your warm up, then you have your WOD, and then you have your cool down. So my session this morning took an hour 15. Warm up, and then the actual working portion was about 30 to 40 minutes, and then cool down. Then my strength session, I always do my strength after my quality run work because I am on the stronger end trying to get faster.
So you're trying to actually slow yourself. You're trying to like dampen yourself in a way.
Yeah, you want to send the right signals first.
Yeah.
So basically, the easiest way to explain it to anyone that's listening would be if you are from a strength background and you need to get faster at running so that all of Hyrox gets easier. Because if you run faster or you have a lower RPE on the runs, you can hit the stations harder as well. So if you don't struggle on the stations, then it's the running that's killing you and spiking your heart rate. You should always run first. It should always be your first session because you're signaling your body that that's the most important
if you're doing 2 sessions in a day.
To. Yes.
Yes.
And I also would always try and do your lifts on the same day as your hard run or your heavy lifts. So if you're doing any compound lifts or you're actually going to really stress or heavy sled work, I would always do that in the PM of your morning quality session because you can then afford to have a really nice, easy recovery day in zone 1, zone 2 the next day. So then you can actually handle another threshold or speed work session or some quality run work. So that's the high-low day.
So basically you're looking at stacking hard shit all on one day, giving yourself bigger periods of recovery before you hit your next hard day. Versus the other approach, which might be giving yourself a little bit of hard every day. Which I think is where what a lot of CrossFitters do, for example, 100%. Right? Every day there's a dose of hard, whether it's like a neuromuscular hard or it's, it's an aerobic session hard, or if you're doing lactate style training. Like I think CrossFitters notoriously have been known to just dose high sympathetic work. So keep it simple, really hard training every single day. Which is where they end up in the overtraining state at some point. So yeah, can definitely resonate with that. Okay, cool. Makes sense.
Completely. It's a very normal approach for endurance athletes. The only exception to that is when I am doing what I call an overreaching phase. So I will purposefully stack. So for instance, the beginning of this week was actually not super chill, even though I raced Saturday. I raced 2 races. One of them was a relay, so it was only like 16 minutes work. But recovered pretty well on Sunday, Monday, and today's Tuesday, so I know I can handle one, but I stacked a little more than normal yesterday in zone 1, and then I'm stacking today heavy, and then also a little bit tomorrow, because I want to overreach before I actually allow myself to rest 2 days into the next race. Because the target race isn't Hong Kong, it's actually Japan. So if I rest too much for this one. So I'm doing like a small overreaching phase where I'll stack like 3 days with too much work than I normally would, but then I can afford a bigger dip to come out of. So I'm digging a deeper hole, but I'll fill it in with a bigger recovery prior to the race.
Weren't you also saying that you have a race coming up where you've got, you're doing a race on a Thursday and then you're doing a race on a Saturday? So, with that in mind as well, because you're doing a solo and a doubles, right? Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. So like, are you also thinking about that as well? So like making sure that you're prepped to be able to do 2 really hard sessions, within a 48-hour window?
Yeah, that's a huge benefit to training this way as well, is typically we always get a day in between. And if you know that you can go deep one day and then you can take a really nice easy to the next day and then hit it again, it really helps. And also it's the same with like stage racing, like the Tour de France guys or mountain bike stage racing. Usually a stage race is typically anything that's like 3 days in a row or more. So Tour de France is on steroids.
It's 18 days, is it?
Yeah. It's quite a It's insane. And I
So
think they get like 2 rest days in there.
yeah, savage.
Yeah, it's absolutely monstrous what they can handle. Like their TSS scores, because they use the same software that I use called Training Peaks.
Yeah.
Um, their TSS scores are through the roof. It's wild to see because they'll release them to the public sometimes, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, I did not follow Tour de France at all. In fact, I didn't really understand it at all. Like all the Lance Armstrong stuff, I had no fucking idea what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
But since they'd released the next Netflix one, I think they just released their 3rd season. Like, I love it.
Yeah.
I'm like so hooked on it.
Yeah.
And again, still can't fully appreciate what they're doing. You know, like because like I'm not a cyclist, I can't really fully appreciate like the output, how fast they're moving, like 10 kilometer consistent uphill climbs, and then like still breaking away and sprinting. And like I'm reading, you know, facial expressions as well. And like they just look like they just look so calm.
Yep.
You know, like and it's just nuts. They're doing that every day.
Yeah.
You know, back to back, and the top guys are just winning everything.
Yep.
It's just it's so insane.
So their training obviously looks way different than mine, but a lot of the principles you can take from that and help understand. So an overreaching phase for a hybrid athlete might just be stacking a couple days in a row. So I do this before I travel or before, say I'm going on like a family trip or something.
Knowing you're
like
going to get some forced rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you know you're going to get forced rest, or if you have a deload week coming up, I like to give my athletes like a couple really hard days in a row to kind of like really bury it.
Yeah.
And then you allow your body to reap the adaptations on the other side. And sometimes it just gives you a little extra bump.
Yeah.
So
do you wear like wearable devices? Do you wear whoops and ultra human rings and stuff like?
Sometimes. So I have a Garmin, and then I also have an Amazfit. The Amazfit, they have a new Helo strap is what it's called.
Okay.
And I typically wear that when I sleep. But the biggest indicator is how I feel.
Yeah.
If I wake up like this morning, truthfully, I knew it was going to be pushing through quite a bit. If I wake up because I haven't been sleeping well or whatever it is, that's the first indication, and then I'll confirm it with data.
Yeah.
But if I feel amazing and my watch says that I shouldn't, I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't care.
And so like, okay, you know, in these 16-week prep phases, or maybe let's even talk like we're getting closer to a race now, like kind of where you are, you're like 1 to 2 weeks out.
Yeah.
Where are your wearable devices saying you? Are you waking up in the red every day? Are you like typically like, are you in the green zones? Are these things telling you you're good?
My Garmin doesn't like me, so it always tells me I need to recover more. But I think it's also because I took a year off and it doesn't remember what I used to do.
Right.
And it's a new Garmin, so it didn't like know the previous version of me.
Right. Okay. Got it.
So I think it just doesn't realize the work capacity I can handle. So I just ignore it.
Okay.
But maybe if you've worn your Garmin for like 6 months or something, it would understand like the action, and you wore it every single session.
Yeah.
But if I'm switching between watches and stuff, like my watch doesn't know that I've been doing more chronic volume. So when my acute volume spikes, it freaks out. And it's like, you need 98 hours of recovery. And I'm like, no, I don't.
You're good. Part of the plan.
Yeah. So for me, it's more resting heart rate. So if my resting heart rate is more than like 4 beats higher than it should be, that's an immediately red flag, like immediately a red flag for me.
Yeah.
If I wake up and I'm like, you know, in the mid 140s, and I never dipped lower than that while I was sleeping, that's a red flag for me. And then the other big one is if your heart rate skyrockets as soon as you start your session, or you can't get it up. Like you're running the pace and you know that it should be coming up into the right zone, but you just like, you can't get it there. That's a huge indication that your body's just too tired.
Yeah.
And so I'll shut it down and I'll take a deload.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to get into some programming stuff here. Now, I know we've been talking about you a lot, and I think whilst it's really cool to hear about what you're doing, the vast majority of us, including me, can't really relate because you're just on another level. So I would love to, let's like break down based on individual finishing times, if we can, some form of scale between like, okay, if we got the elites and we're talking like sub 1 hours, and then like all the way to like beginners, maybe we're saying like, I guess that's a big range, but if you can help me, like, let's create like, let's say 3 or 4 different levels based upon finishing times. How would you categorize people? If elite is sub 1 hour, where do we go next? Working backwards.
I would say after elite, it would be top age group athletes, and they're usually around 1 hour to 105.
Yeah.
there's a lot of guys in that range that are like super, super fit.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then probably the next category would be around 65 minutes to 75 minutes.
Yeah.
And then like 75 to 90 would be where I would put the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
where do you want to start with this?
Yeah.
I guess
So
bottom
I
or
think,
top?
okay. So I think when we look at the bottom, I think you've just got lots of different contributing factors to why they might be in that time zone, right? You
Yep.
might have like strong people who fly through functional stations who just like crawl on the run, sorry.
Yeah.
And then vice versa, you might have some really good runners that really just struggle like moving the sleds or the wall balls.
Yep.
And so I think when you look at the 75-minute plus, it's probably harder for us to have a conversation around what programming should look like and what limiters might be, because there's so many. So I think let's deal with that, like the 10, let's say like the 65 to 75.
Okay.
Or let's say like 1 hour 20 to 1 hour 10.
Okay.
Like, let's look at that. So these are people who are probably like, they're more balanced, I would say. Like they've got some endurance work in them. They've also got some strength work in them. They can handle all the stations. I would love to, because this is basically me. I'm talking about myself right now. Let's talk about that person.
Okay.
So I would love to know, firstly, before we dig into this, like assessment. Right. So you're a coach and you're working with lots of people in the Hyrox space. Someone comes to you and they say, "Hey, Rylan, I want to break the 150. I want to break the 75 barrier, and I'm currently at 80 minutes."
Yep.
How are you assessing to figure out what we need to prioritize with that person? Because like if we think about a very, very simple level, it's like running and then functional stations. But then within functional stations, you've got all 8 different things that are happening there. So like, how do you like start even like breaking down what this person might need?
So first thing I typically ask is, what's your volume of training like?
Okay, I'll tell you what, we're gonna use me. I'm the case study.
Hi, I'm Ryland.
Hello, Ryland. Heard a lot about you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I would love to learn more about you. How many hours, we're going to go straight to the details.
Yeah.
How many hours of training do you do per week on average?
On average?
Yes.
I would say, so I'm training 5 days a week, and
Okay.
each session is probably between 60 minutes to 75 minutes.
Okay. And what do those sessions look like? Like what's the blend of strength and aerobic work?
So I'd say out of the 5 sessions, 3 of those sessions are resistance training.
Okay.
And that is going to be like the squat, hinge, squat, bench, deadlift style, like powerlifting movements with supplementary bodybuilding.
Okay.
And then 2 of those sessions are going to be endurance-based sessions. And for the last like 6 months, I've been trying to get at least one of those sessions has been running, just like isolated running.
Okay.
And then the other session has been like mixed style aerobic work. So like it might be like a CrossFit Metcon of like 15 plus minutes. But probably in the last 12 weeks, one has been like a slow run, continuous work between 8 to 14K of running, and the other one has been like more threshold style running intervals.
Perfect. Okay. So probably about 3 hours of run work per week, 2.5 to 3.
Yeah, I'd probably say 2.5, 2 to 2.5.
Okay. So Hyrox is very much a running race. So
really?
Yeah. So
okay, that's where
I hate to break it to you, but it just based off that training split, if you were telling me like, hey, I really want to get better at Hyrox, this is what I want to focus on, I would be very honest with you. And I would say, okay, we're gonna eventually have to build some more running capacity, not just like the session that's kind of a mix of machines and running. The farther we are out from your race, the actually less I would prioritize that. I would more supplement machine work to your running versus blending them together. So slowly building a little bit of mileage just so that you can handle enough threshold work and enough speed work to get faster. Because I think the mistake that people make with training for Hyrox is they make it too complicated at the beginning. So if you're below 20 to 30K per week, one of the simplest things that you could do is like, okay, I'm averaging 15K a week. So I'm going to do 18K next week, and then I'm going to do 21K next week. And then I'm going to take a 1 week where I drop it back to 15 and then I'll go back up to
Yeah.
23 and just slowly progressing. Honestly, once you get to the 30K mark, that's when I really want to start to see 1 or 2 really good threshold sessions, or something where maybe you do a little neuromuscular work. And what I mean by neuromuscular work for running is drills at the beginning in your warm up, which I saw you doing those today. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Just priming the system to fire correctly and to be more efficient. But the other thing that fast running does is it makes you more efficient because you don't really have an option.
Yeah.
And that's what the drills are for. It's to prime you to run fast. So it could be as simple as at the beginning of your threshold session, you do like 4x400 meters, or you do 8x200 meters with plenty of rest. Because one of the frustrating things in the hybrid space right now is people will call strides VO2 max work because they're at VO2 max velocity, but it's not anywhere close to your ventilatory threshold. So it's not actually stressing that system.
Yeah.
So what a neuromuscular session would look like, or a speed session that is really, really short and condensed, it's more of just running economy work,
Yeah.
which is what a stride is. So strides at the beginning or at the end, and then threshold work is the meat and potatoes of it if you're training for Hyrox.
So can I ask, Coach?
Yeah.
Why this, like, why 30K? Like, why are we trying to get up to 30K of running in a week if a Hyrox race is only 8K?
So a Hyrox race is 8K, and you want to be able to handle that all in your threshold zone with the stations in between. The other reason is typically the split of your total run time plus rock zone time is maybe 55% of the race. So you might think, okay, 50% of my training I'm going to be running. But then you also want to think about how if you are a more efficient runner, you are not as tired for the stations.
Yes.
And then 3 of the stations are largely aerobic capacity as well. The rower, the skier, and the burpees.
Yeah.
Because it's all about keeping your heart rate low while putting more effort out. And running also improves that.
I think that's a really good point that people don't appreciate. It's like, actually, if you just improve your running, not only your run time's gonna get faster, but you're just gonna enter the functional stations in a way better place.
Yeah.
So without even improving your ability to do those things in isolation, improving your running will allow you to complete them in a shorter time.
Yeah.
And I think people just don't appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Most people would think about, oh, I need to improve my sled push. I'm just going to work on the sled push. I think a better example would be the lunges. But the reason your lunges suck, or the reason your wall balls suck, might just be because you're overextending yourself too much. Because I like to think of it as you're flooding your body with lactic acid, right? And so if you're doing it too much on the runs, by the time you get to the station that you on paper are really good at, like there's so many athletes that can do 100 wall balls unbroken in training, but not in a race. And it's because they're flooded. I'm one of those. Like I'm trying to work on finding my line of how much I can flood my body with the lactic acid in the burn and take muscle damage on the lunges and everything, but still wall ball. And that's a different balance for everyone. So the piece to the puzzle might not actually be doing a ton more wall balls. It might be working a little bit more on your run. So then it doesn't cost you as much.
Which has basically been my approach, right? My approach has been, actually, when I look back at the last, I started CrossFit in 2013, really. But before that, playing rugby and football, I'd be running, 20 kilometers a week, every week, probably for, from the age of like 12 to 27. And I think when I got into CrossFit, I just didn't want to run anymore. I was so done with running and was so fascinated by ergs and, like metabolic conditioning and doing aerobic training with a barbell and gymnastics. And I was like, this is all so novel for me that I became like, I honestly didn't want to do anything but running. And then probably not until the last 3-4 years, where CrossFit has no longer become, well, actually way beyond that, but really the last 3-4 years, I was like, I think it's important for me to run. Like, I actually feel, because most CrossFitters, for example, which a lot of listeners to this podcast are, you know, like the only running they do is when it pops up in a WOD, or they do Murph every year, right? And it shows up a 400-meter run into overhead squats, into pull-ups. And that's basically where their run training is done in the week. And I think that was basically where I existed for a really long time. And then I kind of asked myself, I was like, I think running is a very primal thing that I should be able to do. And when I would do these runs in the workhouse, I would just feel like I wouldn't feel good.
Yeah.
You know, I'd feel like my gait was off. I'd be like heavy, hearing my feet. I was probably doing my Nike Metcons, which wasn't good as well, but like feet slap on the floor and just like not feeling athletic. You know, feeling athletic in everything else, but the thing that I've used to feel very athletic in, not feeling it anymore. So I think and then having done my first Hyrox, when the first one that we all did here was, I think, basically the first one in Asia. So we didn't really have like the Hyrox website where you could look at everyone else's scores. That wasn't a thing. Didn't really know. I just kind of like took my approach to how I'd get someone to be good at a 30-minute Metcon, because that's kind of as long as you go in CrossFit, and applied it to it. But I think my biggest takeaway was like, shit, I just need to do more running. Like the running was just really hard for me. And so my thinking this whole time in the prep, when I said, okay, I'm going to do a Hyrox, I basically said after that last Hyrox, okay, I want to keep running in at least once a week, but not to be overly structured with it. Just make sure I'm getting in at least 5 kilometers every week. Because if I compare that to the last 10 years, that's already 5 kilometers more than I was doing.
Don't spike too much.
Yeah, I could look at everyone else and be like, God, I'm still doing nothing. But that was already a massive improvement for me. And I think hearing this like 30K, what you just said there, if we can get you to 30K, that was interesting, because I was, you know, I wrote out a 12-week progression leading up to this race. And that, you know, that was accommodating and calculating total volume in a week. And I think my biggest week got to 18K, which I think relative to where I was starting before the 12 weeks, it was already quite a big bump up. So now hearing, okay, the 30K, and I know there's probably nothing magic about 30K.
No, it's not.
I think that the concept that you're saying is that, well, if you can handle 30 kilometers, then the goal is to be able to run 8K at threshold. Like that's ultimately what we get to. And if you've got all that extra kilometers in the bank, there's a high likelihood you're gonna be able to do that. Is that basically what you're saying?
Yes and no. So it's not just about the magical being able to handle 8K at threshold, because 8K at threshold will take significantly less than a Hyrox race. But it's more about being able to touch that more times in a week. So if you can only handle one 8K run per week plus warm up and cool down, so we'll say 10, 11K. If you can only handle that one session per week, the rest automatically is just going to be easy and filler. But as you are able to increase your mileage, you're actually able to touch that intensity more often, which is going to drive the adaptations. So 2 ways that a CrossFitter could shortcut that, or not shortcut, but be more intelligent about it and remain lower volume on the running side. And I've done this for myself. Actually, prior to the first major I went to, where I placed second, and I think I ran 55 something. Prior to that, I was actually only running. It's low for an Elite 15 guy. I was only running about 45K per week, which I know sounds like a lot, but it's a lot less than most of the guys are between 70 to 100K per week.
Even now.
And
are they doing that like year round?
Off season, usually more. To build the resiliency. So like I'm trying to slowly increase my mileage.
That's like a lot of ultra marathon guys. I'm not talking about elite guys, but I'm talking about like ultra marathon participants. Are aiming for like 100K mileage in a, 100K distance in a week.
They're walking a lot though in their ultra marathon. So like I paced a friend of mine at the time. She was doing a 100-miler. I did 50 of it with her. And it made me realize, like, unless you're at the absolute pinnacle of that sport,
which is also nuts.
At least 50% is walking.
So it's a bit different. I think it's still crazy though. What I'm taking away from it is that guys who are training for 100+ km races, and who are like aiming for 100K weeks, there's Hyroxers who are prepping for an 8K race plus functional stations who are also doing that kind of volume right now. That's nuts.
And
to me, that's nuts.
It's one, because it's the most efficient return for building your aerobic capacity, but also like if I can handle 130K per week,
Yeah.
then when I drop it, when I get into the season, I can handle 3, 4, 5 quality run sessions at a lower K.
Yeah.
Like maybe the session only ends up being 10 to 15K total. But if I can handle 2 of those, like for example, prior to World Champs, I would do a session that would be about 13 to 15K in the morning, and 10 of that would be quality work. 8 to 10 of that would be quality, like over race pace work,
Yeah.
broken up with enough recovery so that I didn't damage my muscles too much. Then I would do a lift in the lunchtime, kind of like today. And then PM, I would do like 3 by 10 minutes at sub threshold, which would put me at another like 15 to 17K,
Yeah.
like in a singular day. And then the next day I would only run like 8K easy.
Yeah.
And so like if you can handle that, you're able to, it's ultimately about being able, the frequency of your training.
Yeah.
But for someone who's coming from CrossFit, what you can do instead is all of your warm-ups, do them on the assault bike or the ski erg or the rower.
Yeah.
And then use a treadmill, or, then take it outside and you do your run work, your quality work at threshold, and then your cool down, instead of doing your cool down run and doing another 2K on your feet, go back to a machine,
So you're
especially the
accumulating
bike.
aerobic volume without.
Yes, aerobic volume without the damage.
Yeah.
So you can keep your kilometers per week down, and you will perform like an athlete that's running 30K a week, but maybe you're only running 15 to 20K.
Yeah.
And that way you're getting all of the quality work that you need to at the critical velocity of like race pace. Like it's the most critical pace that you can run is at race pace, slightly above or slightly below.
Yeah.
Like that's where you want to accumulate your volume when you're close, like within 12 weeks of your race.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that for a Hyrox multiple times per week, maybe you need to do all your warm-ups or recoveries between reps on an assault bike. So like a session for a CrossFitter that I would program, like they're coming from from CrossFit, they want to draw like sub 75 minute in a Hyrox. But they also are really low running mileage. What I would do is say like, okay, well, what if we did a workout where you do all your warm up on the assault bike, you do your running drills instead of just jogging around.
Yeah.
And then you do 400, 800, 1200 meters on the assault runner. And then for your minute or two rest between reps, just hop on the assault bike instead. So you're still building that aerobic capacity, which is what is like, I did the percentages when I started training and going all in on Hyrox again. I broke down the percentage of aerobic versus anaerobic in a Hyrox. And it's really equivalent to a half marathon. And it's about, but slightly more on the anaerobic because of the sleds.
Yeah, sleds, yeah.
It's about 96, 97% aerobic capacity and about 3 to 4% anaerobic capacity.
Yeah.
So any aerobic volume you can build outside of your running mileage, getting into CrossFit as like a low volume on the run side, add it if you can. Because then you can bump up the volume of training that you're able to do, but the running volume is less.
Yes.
So
love it. And that makes a lot of sense. Okay, in terms of, I kind of like still thinking about this assessment question, like benchmarks, like outside of, okay, obviously if someone has done a Hyrox race already, then obviously you've got great data there. And I think what's really cool about Hyrox, for the people who love data, and you are one of those guys, I can tell, the breakdowns and the statistics, and you can basically look at any athlete in the world and basically type in their name, look at their race, and look at every split.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that is a, this wasn't a question I was planning and I never actually thought about it, but like, there aren't many other sports, I guess, that just give that much data away about a person.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a cool thing? As an elite athlete, so you're trying to basically beat your competitors, or do you see it as like, this is my trade secret type thing?
I don't mind it, honestly, because I love how Instagram, I hate this actually, I'm saying I love it. The guys that like, they have an insane back squat, they have an insane 5K time, and they're like a Hyrox athlete, like better than mine by far, both bigger deadlift, bigger back squat. And then also they on paper seem to run faster than me. in the splits that they're doing. And then I show up and race them and they're not even close.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what is it? And it's really caused me to ask this question of like, what are the benchmarks?
Yeah.
For my athletes, I typically do a 5K test just to see where they're at running, because asking the gold standard would be a 10K to a half marathon, depending on how fast they are. Because it's a similar duration to a Hyrox, but like to ask an athlete to
5K
take that
just
much
allows you to
damage.
capture some information without actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you can base your training off the 5K split. And so that's usually what I do. But if they've recently raced a 10K or a half marathon, gold standard.
Yeah.
So I'll ask them like, hey, have you ever raced this, or recently have you raced a 10K or half marathon? And I'll specifically ask for that. And then I'll ask them like, okay, where do you think you're at now?
Yeah.
And I can get a pretty good idea of where their running capacity is at. And then usually for me, I don't ever deal with 1 rep maxes, because that's very irrelevant to Hyrox. But like maybe I like to use a 4x4 or a 4x5 just to see where their strength is at.
In which movements?
Back squat, deadlift, and overhead press typically. The overhead press isn't as important, but it does help with wall balls just to see if they're like really weak in the upper body, because pressing overhead is a weakness of, or has been a weakness of mine.
Yeah.
Just because of the cycling background, I like never did that. Yeah. So it took me a while, because it wasn't my legs that would fatigue on wall balls. It was my shoulders.
My shoulders.
So
shoulders and throw.
So yeah, I like those 3 movements just to get a general perspective of like, okay, where are they weakest in their body? And then after that, it's more about tracking those every 8 weeks. I like to retest those 8 to 12, and then seeing if their running is getting better, but their strength numbers are coming down, or vice versa. Right. And then that's what's tricky, is you also have to factor in like weight and nutrition, and like, okay, are you fueling correctly and maintaining muscle mass so that your strength numbers don't drop? Or are you trying to lose weight and we're expecting them to drop because you're already really strong from CrossFit? Yeah. So I would say is long, like that's what's cool about the Elite 15 field, is we've got guys who their deadlift is like 305. Yeah. That's like their 1 rep max. Yeah. And then you've got guys who are in the middle like me, where like I'd probably get at least 10 to 12 reps of 305. Yeah. And then my one rep max is closer to like 400. Yeah. But then there's guys who can almost pull 5.
Yeah. Hunter McIntyre's like a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about the 5K, because I think that's probably a distance that a lot of people can do and probably have done at some point in time. Like, what is for you, you know, we're talking about this kind of like intermediate Hyroxer right now. Like, what numbers do you want to see to be like, okay, I'm kind of happy where the running's at. We can obviously always improve everything, versus like, okay, running needs to be a priority for this person. Like, what kind of like times are you looking at for the 5K?
So to run a 75-minute Hyrox, if obviously it depends on how fast you're doing the stations. Yeah. But typically you would need to be around 430 to 415 per K. Yeah. To like realistically be under 75 minutes. So you probably if you're stationing fast,
yeah, I'd probably
like
say
440.
CrossFitters will probably hit the stations a little faster.
Yeah.
I reckon like CrossFitters need to be going, because I think when I look at my splits based on my last race, I think I need to be running sub 5-minute kilometers for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And even that's going to be tight. That's if I really execute on the stations.
Yeah. 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 So if you're cranking the stations, you could maybe pull off like 5-minute Ks and still make that goal.
Tough.
But to be safe, I think closer to the 430, you could definitely be under the 75-minute mark. And to do that, like I look at, for instance, myself, my goal in this weekend's race is I want to be around 325 per K. Yeah. But my 5K,
you know, when I did the relay, I didn't even get to 325, and now it's like balls to the wall. Sorry, continue.
I'm sure you can outlift me though. I'm positive you can outlift me.
Not sure about that.
But anyways, so I kind of think of it as percentage wise. So my 5K time right now is realistically around like 550. Yeah. So I'm running about 305 to 310 per K in a 5K. So if I just add about 5 to 10%, that's around where I'm running my Hyrox race pace.
Okay.
So in a 5K test, say you do a 5K test, you can kind of add, every athlete's a little different because we handle lactate differently.
Yeah.
The more well-trained you are, the better you're going to handle it. So
Yeah.
you're going to be closer to the 5%, but that's how I would look at it, is you can base a lot of your training off that 5K test, because you can see, one, in the workouts that you do at threshold afterwards, those are
Yeah.
going to be the most important. But just on that 5K test, you can kind of get an idea of like, okay, if I add 10%, realistically, I should be able to hold this.
I would say, again, using me as a case study, I would say my ability to tolerate lactate is pretty poor these days. I think when I was like doing a lot of CrossFit, it was
Yeah.
really good
Yeah.
because I was just in that zone all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could tolerate it really well. And I could be past, you know, I could be have pretty high levels of lactate and exist for minutes at high outputs. But I feel like now, because I've generally, as I've gone older, I kind of stay away from that because
Yeah.
I'm a little bit scared of it, because I
Yeah.
just know I can't recover as much anymore.
Yeah.
I know that I can go there, but I know my ability to hang there is way less than before. And I think a lot of that could be psychological as well, just because I'm not touching that work in my training as much anymore. That I think a lot of people, when they first do, like, they experience it, they kind of like get a little bit scared, right?
Yeah.
Like, fuck, it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Whereas before I used to chase that feeling. Now I'm just like a bit terrified of it. So I think I have, number one, I would say that I don't tolerate it very well. So I try to stay away from it as long as I can, and know that once I've dipped past it, I don't probably have very long before I start crashing and burning.
A good way to kind of counteract that
Yeah.
is, I don't think this is becoming popular yet in the Hyrox space, but in the cycling world, it's pretty popular. They just call it sub-threshold work.
Yeah.
And essentially, you just stay right underneath
Just
that line.
below, yeah.
So if my threshold heart rate is, right now, it seems to be around 175. I do a lot of work, especially my PM sessions are between like 167 and 172 beats per minute, depending on where RPE is at.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it's that manageable line where I know I could do it for an hour if I needed to,
Yeah.
but I'm still banking 30 minutes there, and you get way less damage overall, but you get a lot of the same benefits.
Yeah.
You get, 80-90% of the benefits that you would be getting if you're at your threshold, but you're just below it, and it makes it a lot more manageable for many athletes, myself included. Like, second session of the day, like, usually that's the one where I'll be slightly below.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the strength movements now, and strength training. Like, okay, so my question is, you just talked about some, different, like, the ranges in what some of the top guys are lifting on the deadlift.
Yeah.
Like, how strong do you actually need to be? Like, what are your litmus tests? But what are the point where you know that it's like, okay, I probably don't need to get any stronger than this? So in CrossFit, for example, like, okay, at the highest level, like, there really is no ceiling to how strong you can be, because there's probably always going to be a max lift in some sort.
Yeah.
And there's 100 points going for that event. Then you want, if you have the ability to win it, then go and win it.
Go in it.
But I think for most people, like, if people want to RX across the open, for example, right, then for guys, like, you want to be snatching 185 pounds, you want to be clean and jerking 225. We kind of have these like rough benchmarks that you kind of want to get to. You need to be deadlifting 315 for multiple reps under fatigue. So we have these kind of like benchmarks that we know people need to get to. When you get to a high level, the snatch then goes up to 225, and now it's 275 at the high level. That's what guys are snatching.
Okay.
But that's also because the nature of CrossFit tests are always changing and it's evolving. But given that we know what the sport of Hyrox is asking of us in a pro division, let's say, for example, like, how much do you really need to deadlift? How much do you need to back squat? And is there a point where you cross a certain threshold where it's like, okay, it's probably doesn't need to be something you need to continue to try and improve?
That's why I don't really worry about 1 rep maxes for any of my athletes or myself, is because there's almost no reason for it in Hyrox. Even 4 reps. The reason I pick 4 reps is because endurance athletes typically shy away from doing low rep schemes too much, when that's what's going to actually improve their bone density and give them exactly what they need.
Yeah.
So that's actually more why I use that. But as far as Hyrox, it's actually more of a strength endurance component. So Dylan Scott, for instance, I think max deadlift, he's probably around 315 or so, but he's also one of the fastest runners in the field. So that's where I'm saying is like, if you're already really, really strong, you are much better off focusing on the running, because then you can play to your strengths already. So if you're deadlifting 500 pounds, you don't need that. I would say anything past 400, there's not really a lot of benefit, because it's more like, if you think about it, a lot of it is single leg muscular endurance. So you can become stronger. So each rep costs you less, but after a certain point, it's not really helping anymore. So I would say back squat, as long as you can back squat like 225, 250 is great. For like, you know, like 4 to 6 reps. And as long as you can deadlift, you know, like 315, 4 to 6 reps, 3 or 4 times, I feel like much more than that, you're not really seeing a lot of benefit. And I would focus more on being fresher when you arrive at the sleds.
Yeah.
And then a lot of it is rear chain.
Because it really is about the sleds, right? That's where the strength element, like, you really basically,
After that, it's almost exclusively aerobic. Except wall balls, and that's 100 reps. So like, you could back squat 500 pounds, but if you can't do 100 air squats, like, you're not gonna go unbroken. So that's where I can't really give you a solid answer, because it's, if you're lighter or if you're faster and you're weaker, you can just outrun everyone, and then you arrive at the stations fresher than the guys who can deadlift way more than you.
That's a better advantage if you can deadlift more.
Or if you're someone who's super strong, then your hard work is on the runs, and you play to your strengths, and you just make all the time back on the stations. So the bigger athletes, that's typically exactly what happens, is they give away a little time on the runs, and then they're scared because they're heavier. They can yank on it more. Same with the row. Same with the sleds. So like, there's 4 stations right there where they can easily make 10 to 20 seconds on the rest of the field. And then the runners, they're like, I'm going to hit the burpees hard. You know, I'm going to be decent on the skier and rower. I'm going to be really efficient on the lunges. And that's where they make their time. So it's really cool to see how a race changes, because people are very dynamic.
And weaknesses,
but I would say, like, much past 400 on a deadlift 1 rep max, I don't think there's a reason to get stronger than that. And then I think, you know, being able to do like at least 300 for 4 to 6 reps on like a 4x4 cycle or something like that, and then around 225 back squat.
If we look at you, Ryland, because it's probably easier rather than trying to pull out these like random avatars from the world. Like, what percentage of your training sessions in a week are like resistance training based?
1, usually.
1 session.
1 to 2, depending on
how many sessions are we doing? You're doing 2 to 3 sessions a day.
I would say I average 2 to 2.5. My high days are 2 to 3 quality sessions, and then my low days are 1 to 2 really easy aerobic work. So I'll do farmer's carries, which are kind of resistance training, but I'm still moving, and it's not like a max lift. I would say actual strength work, I'm doing 1 to 1.5 times per week.
Are you doing full body sessions?
No, it's usually compound movements, and then I'm very sports specific at this point, because one reason is because I dabble in so many sports. So I don't really create the time to do a lot of just different stuff. So typically my strength session will be accessory work and turning stuff on at the beginning. So today I was doing like single leg overhead press to work my core, my shoulders, and my balance at the same time. Really efficient form of movement. And then I did I'm trying to make myself a little bit more elastic and explosive. So I did some isometric, like single leg isometrics, just with working on my soleus and my calf, and then my Achilles tendon.
Can I just ask you real quick, like, why are you trying to be more explosive?
I want to be a faster runner. So it's more the rebound stiffness. I'm trying to work on the stiffness of my tendons to be able to rebound faster. So I'm a little bit pop would be a better way to put it. And then explosive, I feel like Hyrox training has made me less athletic, and I don't like that for my personal life.
So nothing to do with actually Hyrox.
Not the explosiveness.
Yeah.
That's just personal life stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Just don't
be
be like being slow.
Yeah, if you only train for Hyrox and Hyrox movements, you are getting very little plyometric work, minus the burpees, and so that can hurt your running long term because
Yeah.
you lose your pop and
Yeah.
that bouncy feeling. And like I want to be able to bounce,
Got
so
it.
it's something that I would prioritize at least like once every 10 days for athletes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the reason I do so little strength is because I'm on the stronger end
Yeah.
of what a Hyrox athlete could be at the top, and I would rather be on the faster end. Like
Yeah.
I would rather be a Dylan Scott versus a Hunter, because I love mountain races and like cycling and running. So I'll go do trail running, like pro trail running races sometimes, or I used to, and I want to be
Yeah.
able to like blend the gap. So that's why I choose to be an athlete that's like smaller, lighter, or that's where I'm going back to, versus like stronger, lifting more.
Yeah.
So my strength training also reflects that, where I'll only do heavy compound lifts, usually like once every 7 to 10 days. And then the other session will be more like stuff today, where I'm actually trying to, right now, what I'm trying to do is fatigue my type 2A muscle fibers and type 2X with the like jumping deadlifts or like really heavy stuff for 4 to 6 reps, so that I'm cooking those. And then I basically do a heavy sled push or something like that right after, to make the rest of the fibers
Take
more
over.
oxidative.
Yeah.
So that they're more efficient at handling oxygen. I'm trying to like create more of those hybrid fibers in my body,
Yeah.
where I can handle higher intensities for a longer amount of time. Like that's my personal goal in training right
Yeah.
now. And I'm also trying to create more rebound effect in my tendons.
I think in hearing that, I think for most people listening, I think for most people they might hear that and be like, "Oh, I need to do that too."
Yeah.
I think
yeah.
I think when it's like, and this is what I often think about, you know, with Hyrox, because at your level, you know, there's so little now between the top guys. You know, we're talking like guys are interchanging wins and podium finishes, and like we're talking like seconds between finishes. And there isn't, because a race isn't like a marathon, which is like, you know, a really long distance and longer time, like the separation, you know, it's like we're seeing the times come down every single year, but it's like when you guys are all so good, you know, like so good at running already, like strong enough already, like then I think the little things, the tiny little things can be, you know, really important. That can be like 3 seconds added to taking off a race time, and that can be the difference between first and third.
Yeah.
So I think, which I think is really cool, and it's going to be interesting to see how you guys at the top level continue to evolve the training to continue to squeak out, you know, like 5 seconds here and 10 seconds there, because that's really what it is, right? It's like tiny little improvements.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think about that a lot. I'm like, God, what do these guys have to do, like besides just like run more or just run harder? Like it starts to get more scientific, and like the little things like this, like you're talking about. Yeah.
A lot of it's durability now.
Yeah.
So I am sure there are other athletes in the field who can rip a 5K faster and slower than I can, but there's guys like Bo Wills, really like that guy. He's a super cool guy. His 5K time is not as impressive as others in the field, but his running durability is incredible. And a lot of that's due to his CrossFit background and also his strength numbers. But I think what people don't realize is it's single leg running specific strength. And also the sleds are single leg as well. The lunges are single leg as well. So traditional movements aren't the greatest predictors of Hyrox performance and also running performance. Because if you have two athletes that run the same 5K, the one that is less beat up after that 5K from a muscular perspective, especially because it's a single leg movement, they're going to perform better on the lunges right after.
Yeah.
Same with the wall balls, even though that's two, but like the sleds and the lunges, almost everything is like single leg and Hyrox, except for the wall balls.
Love it.
So a lot of the strength that I do is also single leg focused.
So when it comes to strategy, because we're talking about that, this like this idea of like break, like, you know, where you're strong, where you're weak, where you're fast, where you're slow, has been like kind of like meandering throughout this whole conversation. Like very broad, like pacing advice. Like if you're giving a thing out to the world of the Hyroxes, not now we're not talking about the elite, maybe we're kind of thinking about just the more beginners and the
Yeah.
more novices. Like what are the biggest mistakes people are making in terms of actually how they strategize their race and actually run the race?
Going out too fast.
Yeah.
Classic, because it's 75 minutes is a long time to grind. That's a really long grind.
This is what I didn't appreciate when I first did Hyrox.
Yeah, it's a rough race.
Yeah.
It's just brutal because even when you're pretty much done, 100 wall balls when you're that tired just sucks.
Yeah.
So I think most people, especially my newer athletes that are trying it for the first time, I typically tell them, make sure you get to the burpees and feel like you still are doing okay.
Yeah.
Like 7 to 7.5 out of 10. Because after the burpees, you're not going to feel that way anymore.
No.
Like the burpees are where most people want to die.
Yeah.
Me included. And there's very few athletes that get out of the burpees and feel good.
Yeah.
And so most people smash the ski erg a little too hard, and then the sleds, they're like, oh, this is a strength movement, but they don't think about spiking their heart rate.
Yeah.
And then they're not running easy enough into that burpee station, and then they just die on burpees. And once you go over your threshold, it's
very hard to get
it's
back.
hard to come back down.
Yeah.
The lower you are at sea level, like the easier it is, but it's still like once you overheat or overcook it, everything after that's going to slow down. So I would say holding back a little bit until the burpees is a great strategy for almost anyone.
You know, when I did my first Hyrox, I was like, I'm good at burpees.
Yeah.
So I executed all that advice. In fact, there's two things I did really badly.
Yeah.
I think I was the last off the ski erg, and I think there was we only had like 25 or 30 guys doing the pro, but I think I was the last off the ski erg, knowing that okay, I'm just gonna start slow, and then like Ant included just went flying on that first K.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm just gonna let them go, and like hopefully later in the race I'll catch up.
Yeah.
The sled, because I hadn't watched any Hyroxes, nothing, and there wasn't really a thing then. My mistake was that I did every sled push unbroken for me.
Oh,
because I was thinking once it's moving, it's easy.
Yeah.
And then we didn't have a sled in the gym at the time, so we kept on doing simulations without the sleds.
Yeah.
And just thought, oh, I've just played rugby my whole life. We always push sleds. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And actually, it was fine pushing it, but the aftermath of getting back to that run, I was like, okay, I've really messed this up.
Yeah.
And then the sled pull, I didn't have any technique, so I went hand over hand for as long as I could.
Dude.
And that went really bad, so my arms completely blew out.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, I didn't even know what I was doing, just doing anything to try and get the sled there. So my QL got super lit up. I was like, going sideways, and everyone was we just looked like idiots trying to move that sled. And then it was when I got to burpees and I saw everyone struggling, and I said to myself, I'm going to make a move now, and I'm just going to fly past everyone. And then I just really didn't appreciate what was going to happen after that. So I felt really good moving through the burpees.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I started that run, I was like, oh, fuck, I fucked it again.
Yeah.
Like for the third time in this race, I'm like now in a hole.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to get back out that hole again.
Yeah.
Then I started cramping on the next run, and it was just a shit show after that.
Yeah.
But for sure, and this is 3 years ago, and it's still very clear in my mind.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I went home that night, I reflected on the race. I was like, oh wow, I just didn't appreciate these stations.
Yeah.
And so I'm coming into this race thinking, okay, I'm probably not as fit as I was last time.
Yeah.
Like I would say that I was doing a lot more CrossFit back then. I have done more running, so I think that's an advantage I have.
Definitely.
I've been sick for a few weeks, so I haven't been able to do a simulation or anything. So now I don't have all that much confidence around my paces, but I think I'll just be able to work it out. But I think for me, it's just going to be all about just executing the first 50 to 60% of the race slower.
Yeah.
What I did, and just avoid that massive drop off that happened basically when I got to this, I think it was a fifth or sixth run, and then just try and hold it smooth as much as possible.
I think that's a great strategy. And then also realizing that at burpees, you're like only halfway.
Yeah.
And so if you did slightly underdo it, which I've
not
very rarely heard people say that they've underdone it finishing burpees. It's like, I don't think people realize that if you overdo it prior to burpees, your burpees, one, might take forever, but then the runs after that might be a lot, because
Yeah.
it's not just like, for instance, you're doing hand over hand on the sled. It's not just that you're destroying your arms for the burpees as well, and the farmer's carry and the wall balls later. It's also that you're causing a lot of blood shunting. And to run immediately after, like, your heart wants to be the most
Redistribute that blood,
efficient. Yeah. So if you're constantly having to cycle between like pumping to your arms and then pumping back to your core and legs, there's only so much blood in your body. So it's easier for your body like to be more efficient at that. And so trying to use your arms less on the sled pull
Yes.
helps a ton. But also, like, if you can just say you run 10 seconds slower per K and keep everything in control until burpees, you always have the option to run 10 seconds faster per K, or do the row's not a good one to sell out on, but like, well, lunges and wall balls, you can catch so many people just by feeling strong on them, because that's where most people are dying. So yeah, being a little conservative on those first 3 runs makes a big difference.
Yeah, good advice.
Yeah.
Ryan, this has been great, by the way. This has been awesome. I want to just switch gears a little bit now, just to wrap up the episode. And I want to talk about the future of Hyrox. And because I think everyone right now who's not really in the space, but they're seeing all this noise in Hyrox, I think everyone's saying the same things, right? The first thing they say is like, oh, but how long is it going to stay around for? I'm giving it 2 years. Everyone's got their number of how many years they're giving it before, I don't know, it's going to become obsolete and not interesting, or people get bored of it. So what do you see as like the future of Hyrox at the elite level? Like, where is it moving? There's talks about trying to make an Olympic bid for 2032 in Brisbane. I think it is when they're targeting it. Like, where do you see it moving for those who want to chase high level performance and be potentially a full-time athlete?
They're doing a great job right now. They're crushing, honestly, one of the most important things about business at this point, social media. They're really good at it. They're very good at their publicity and their marketing. They're very good at creating a environment that makes people feel like they are cool and like they are special.
Feel like an athlete.
Yeah, you feel like an athlete. And this is a little bit unrelated, but I think as people have less kids, as we're seeing a trend in, and better jobs, chasing money and goals like that, a lot of people are realizing that, oh, well, I don't know what to do with this time as much. And also we're seeing a lot of health problems from previous generations, and people are starting to wake up. Like, don't just trust the government and what it says, or at least in the US, like, they might tell you that this is healthy. Maybe it's not. Like, we really should take care of ourselves. And so just from the outside looking in, I see brands that are creating an experience where people are improving their lifestyle, but they're also doing it in a community where they feel like they're not the only ones. I think they're going to do really well, as long as they can maintain that. If they have more sled issues and things where people feel like their races were ruined off the bat, or like there's not enough wall ball judges or things like that, if they don't iron out those kinks, or if they oversell tickets to the point where the experience drops, I think it's going to crash. But I really do think that they're taking steps. Like, now they have an athlete committee where they ask elite athletes or coaches, like, hey, what are the things you're running into or seeing that we're missing?
Nice.
And that shows a lot of maturity for me, for a brand to do that, because the other race brands that I've experienced, they typically don't care what the athletes say. They're just more about selling tickets. So at first I thought, I give Hyrox 5 years. 2 years ago, that's what I thought. Last year even, I was like, maybe give it 10.
And that 5 years was like, what did you envision seeing happening at 5 years?
Everyone would do it. They would peak and have their experience, and then move on because it's not the cool thing to do anymore. But they're doing a really good job of creating a culture and an experience behind it through affiliate gyms, and then also through kind of like selling this lifestyle and making people feel special and valued. And so if they continue to do that, I think once the clout dies down, their numbers might die down slightly, but especially if they do get that Olympic bid, that'll solidify the sport a bit. um, because it's something that's so simple people can do.
Yeah.
So I like there's things that I do not like about Hyrox. There's things that, you know, like I would do differently, but when I think about it from a more holistic perspective, I really like how they are encouraging people to do simple movements that pretty much everyone can do and stay injury free. And like, you know, a 70-year-old can do it. They can push a decently heavy sled. And like that's something that like there's very few mountain bikers that can still mountain bike at 70 or 80 years old,
Yeah.
or that's something that makes running special. And I think why people are returning to running in general and run clubs are so big now is because it's creating this culture of like, oh, we just need a pair of shoes and we can go run.
Yeah.
And it's so simple. And Hyrox is essentially a very simple race. It's the same every time. It's easy to prepare for. Um, and almost everyone can do it. So I think, but it's still hard for everybody. Like whatever level you sign up for, it still sucks and it makes you feel proud of something that you did. So I honestly think that they might have a longer, I think as long as they continue to create culture and community of making people feel special and valued, and also like they're an athlete, I think they're going to continue to do well. If they ever focus too much on just selling tickets and the quality drops, I think they're going to die.
Nice.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I think, you know, when I think about CrossFit and what made CrossFit so, I think that, like, you look at the avatar of a lot of people who became attracted to CrossFit, especially when it was more at its peak. It's like, you know, it's a very mature fitness market. People who've been and done Barry's boot camps, F45s, they played sport, and they're kind of like, they're attracted by this like next level of like progression in a way. You know what I mean? It's like CrossFit was cool because you could learn how to do a handstand and how to do a snatch and like these things that no one else could do, and you know that was like, and of course that has like, I think if you break it down to a deeper level, why people really loved that was the impact that that had in things like confidence and position in society and how people viewed you in your social circles. Like, you know, the moment you can do a muscle up, you're the man.
Yeah.
The moment you can snatch two blues, like you are the prince of your gym.
I mean, I've never even done that.
But I know, but I mean, but in the CrossFit world, that is
Yeah.
the thing. Like you know, it's all about social status
Yeah.
in many ways. Like, you know, you unlock these milestones, and it's like when I look at Hyrox now, for those who like, you know, who are taking it a bit more seriously than just doing a relay, for example, it's like breaking the breaking the 1 hour 10 barrier is like you immediately take it, you take a notch up in the social status. Like you break an hour, like, okay, now you're the man. Like you're going sub 55, like it's interesting like how these things like emerge within the sport. And I'm interested to see, you know, I think right now in the you know, in the CrossFit space, Hyrox is, I mean, I think Hyrox is amazing. I think it's done nothing but really good things for actually a lot of CrossFit gyms.
Yeah.
Obviously, for the maybe the CrossFit gyms that maybe weren't doing such a good job, there's been a big like, not exodus, but a movement of people away from CrossFit. Maybe perhaps like feeling a bit burnt out with it. Maybe they get into a later point in age where, you know, a lot of people transition to endurance-based sports. Like Ironman is like 40 pluses, triathlons, like older generations and people with money. So I think, you know, maybe a lot of people like, you know, became kind of done with that stuff now, moving into Hyrox because it's easier on the body. Again, I think Hyrox did an incredible job scaling the race, how many people they can get in, just a celebration of like, yeah, just it's like a party. It's a party and a festival, right? Like there's DJs, like
it's an
you cross the finish
experience
line. It's
for
an
people.
experience, yeah. And
People do it for vacation now.
and there's a community of 4,000 people who are like-minded. I think that's what's really cool as well. Like when you sign up to a Hyrox race, you're about to do something pretty hard.
Yeah.
And I think CrossFit does that as well. You walk into a CrossFit gym and you're immediately surrounded by people who, you know, like to do hard things. The difference is in a CrossFit competition, there's 50 people. And in a Hyrox competition, you got 5,000 people. Like, you know, just because of the nature of like how the race has been designed.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see the knock-on effects. I think the beautiful thing about Hyrox is because it is the sport for everyone, you know, low barriers to entry, people can keep on funneling through, right? And I don't think we're anywhere near that slowing down. You know, people now, you know, maybe they've just joined their first Barry's boot camp gym, and 6 months later they're like, I can do a Hyrox now. And I think that's going to be this really cool funnel of people early in their fitness journey doing their first Hyrox race, and it's going to be the relay, then it's going to be the doubles, and maybe they can do a solo one day. But I'm interested to see this, like the dropout market eventually of people who maybe have done 10 Hyrox races over 5 years. They've done a ton of running, they've done a ton of wall balls, they've done a ton of lunges and sled pushing, and they're like, okay, I wonder if it's going to come full circle back to the CrossFit style gyms, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if CrossFit is going to be the brand that's going to get us there because of everything that's been happening within CrossFit. And like, you know, it's kind of this fall from grace at the moment. But I'm talking about like, you know, higher skill, higher complexity training, because Hyrox is essentially accelerating this market of people really investing in their health and wellness and fitness as well, actually like the performance side of it. So it'd be interesting to see if there is like this like this kind of like drop off market where they're like, okay, what's the next thing I want now? And it's not to say that I don't think Hyrox racing will ever be removed from what they want to do. I think the beauty of it is that you could move into another discipline of training and still kind of just with a few weeks of training rock up and do a Hyrox, like a marathon and a half marathon. And those things aren't going anywhere. I think the people who make the argument for
running is actually killing it right now. Trail running especially. Just like people are realizing it's so accessible. And also, I think just as a culture, people are realizing if we don't take this seriously, we're going to have a low quality of life later. And so finding trail running or Hyrox or running in general or cycling or triathlon, like it's a joke, but it's so true. Like anyone who doesn't have kids in their 30s right now is either training for a Hyrox or a triathlon or a marathon. Like I don't know many people that don't have kids that are like in their 30s and they're not doing one of those three. So it's a joke, but it's true. It's a true stereotype. And I think it's cool to see as a culture, but also like people taking their health and fitness more seriously. I do think there might be a small drop off once everyone's done it and they're like, oh, I've done enough Hyroxes, I want to do triathlon now. But I also think there will be exchange in other sports as well. So I'm like, to me, I think if they do get the Olympic bid, that will help solidify them as like, oh, this is going to be in the Olympics. Therefore, the elite athletes are going to keep training for it. It's a legitimate thing that they can do. And also, they nail their photos and it makes people look and feel good. Like I see photos from Hyrox races and that's not how people look in real life. I don't even look like that in real life, bro. I go to a Hyrox race, I get the photos back sometimes and I'm just like, I'm not that shredded. They're really good at this, making people feel like cool. And then they post it on social media, free publicity for them. And then boom, more people in their pocket. So if they keep crushing stuff like that, making people feel special and like an athlete, I foresee them doing well.
Yeah, I agree. Ryland, we have a closing tradition on this podcast.
Okay. What is this?
And that question is, it's a simple question.
Okay.
I'm interested to hear your answer though, knowing the kind of lifestyle that you live.
Okay.
If you could construct your perfect day, what would it be?
I ask this to almost any like new friend that I'm trying to get to know at a deeper level. I ask this exact question. I ask them like, what would you do if you had no barriers from sun up to sundown? What would you fill your day with? Because it tells you a lot about a person. I've never been asked this question first.
There you go.
This is a special moment for me. Okay, so I do this every year for my birthday, actually. It doesn't have to be on my birthday because weather is really important. But believe it or not, I've thought about this a lot.
Love it.
So typically I start off with morning coffee. Then I go into some sunrise yoga. Then
so morning coffee's happening before the sun's up?
Yeah, I got to be efficient with it, I guess. Yeah. Typically this happens like early summer for me. Then I have a thing where I try and hit a sub 5-minute mile just for my birthday every year, just to like make sure it's still in there. Cause I want to see how long I can keep that tradition into my later adulthood. So small, like 10-15 minute session total. Then I typically, the weather's still good and I plan it on a day where I can run up a mountain and then fly down. So I do that next.
Wait, can you just clarify what flying down means?
I do speed flying. It's like a smaller wing paragliding. So you pack it in your backpack and I have a really small wing. So it's like maybe 3 kg total with the wing and harness. super light, and then my helmet adds another maybe 1 kilo, or not even a kilo, probably like 400 grams. So yeah, super lightweight. I just run up with some trekking poles. Or if there's still snow on the mountain, I'll ski up and then I'll like ski and fly down, or I'll ski down a bit and then fly the rest of the way. Then I usually go on a trail run, and I like technical trail running. So I go up in the mountains and do like a exposed ridge line. And then I go mountain biking, and I eat a lot of food in between as well. Usually some Lucky Charms are in there.
Nice.
And then I try and do something that's water related, whether it's wake surfing, surfing itself, if I'm in a place where there's mountains and an ocean, or a flow rider, which is like indoor surfing.
Yeah.
And then I'll pick like some sort of obscure sport that I used to play, like soccer or skateboarding, or just
I love
something
how
like that.
football is the obscure sport, and you're like sprinting up a mountain and jumping off it with a fucking paraglider. That's not the obscure sport. Anyway, continue. Good
I
shit.
guess like for my normal, like
Yeah.
that's pretty normal for me to do.
Yeah.
And so the one that I don't do as often is play
Got
football.
it.
So I might get some friends and like be like, hey, it's my birthday, you want to play a game type thing. And then I typically have an evening hike and fly, because the first one's like skiing related, to like check the box of skiing. And then the second one is just like running and flying. And that's usually a sunset one, just because it's the best time to fly and it's beautiful. And then I like to have, by my house, there's hot springs right next to a river. So I do
Nice.
like hot, cold, and then I build a bonfire and eat some food with friends and then go to bed.
Mate, that's a great day. There's a shitload of activity in that day as well.
I actually have 2 of those videos on my YouTube.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I only share them with friends and family really, but like anyone can see them. But yeah,
Love
I
it.
call them my epic days.
That sounds like an epic day.
It's so fun, dude. And I'm exhausted by the end,
Yeah.
like dead. But it's-
Rylan, this has been awesome.
Yeah.
I knew I was looking forward to this podcast because I know you're someone who thinks very deeply about this stuff. And obviously I see it every time you come to Coastal Fitness, and the way that you think about your training, the way you structure it, like you're a man who has a lot of knowledge in this space. And yeah, it's very cool to see, have watched your journey over last year, and it's cool to have you back here. And yeah, thank you for sharing all the amazing insights. Where can people find out more about you, or how can people work with you?
So Instagram is a great place. It's just at Rylan Schadegg. So that's usually where most people reach out. And then I have the YouTube channel as well, which I'm now starting to put a little bit more educational content on, because you can do longer form, because a reel is only like a minute and a half.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to create a perspective of how people can train differently, because I actually very rarely train in a gym like this specifically. Typically I'm outside doing stuff. So YouTube's a great way as well. And then if people want to work with me, I have a coaching application in my bio on my Instagram. But yeah, Instagram's usually the best way to reach out, and I love answering people's questions on there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Rylan, thank you so much, buddy.
Thanks
And
for
good luck
having me on.
this weekend and with all the races you have coming up. And yeah, looking forward to seeing your journey unfold.
Thank you. Also, good luck to you, man.
Thanks,
It's gonna be a
buddy.
fun weekend.
Appreciate
I'm
it.
excited.
Before we say goodbye, here's one crazy statistic for you. Did you know that almost 40% of people who listen to the show don't actually subscribe to it? Now, I didn't think that was a big deal until I actually learned about the power of hitting subscribe. For you, the listener, you get to stay up to date when we drop episodes on a weekly basis. But for us as a podcast, it really helps our visibility and helps us attract great brands and great listeners to help grow this podcast. So if you enjoyed this episode, or you're a big fan of the show, please do us a massive favor and hit subscribe. Thank you so much.